Alongside Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable. Guys, it's Tennessee Tech week. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Tennessee Tech didn't score last week against Furman. So Tennessee should win this game going away. So we'll start with the quarterbacks and then kind of get into the big picture of what you want to see. But, you know, what do we think we see at quarterback this week? I think we all agree we're going to see multiple guys, but who do we see to start the game?
Well, is Joe Milton healthy? What kind of week have they had on the practice field? I think if you're Josh Heupel, you go into this week and you went into this week, Rob, with it being an open competition between Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. If Joe Milton's healthy. If not, and Hooker's taking all the first team reps, I'm starting Hendon Hooker, and I'll probably start him anyway.
Yeah, I agree. There's not a great answer at the quarterback position right now, no matter which way you go. I mean, there's faults, there's flaws with both guys. I mean, Milton's inaccuracy, especially on the deep balls, has just been gut-wrenching for fans to watch. I mean, Hooker was far from perfect on Saturday, but he had the 2 turnovers, but he led Tennessee on 3 touchdown drives, had him in the game in the second half. I'm probably starting Hooker, but I'm not marrying myself to Hooker right now if I'm Josh Heupel.
Well, I mean, I said the preseason. I don't know if it'd be silly to marry yourself to anybody. I mean, you can see why they wanted to go with Joe Milton, but Hendon Hooker did a nice job of directing the offense. He had the 2 turnovers. Obviously, the one late was crippling because it picked up the ball back and was able to run out the clock. But he clearly gives you an extra dimension right here with his legs. That Joe Milton, I think straight line is fine, but the play right there where he made the guy miss, I don't know if Joe has that play.
No, I mean, the difference is when Hendon Hooker tucks it and runs, he becomes a runner, not a running quarterback. He becomes a runner, a little bit Josh Dobbs-like. Here's the thing, too. Where does Josh Heupel factor in pace of play? Can Hendon Hooker play as fast as he wants to play? How big of a deal is that in deciding who you're going to play at quarterback? I don't know the answer to that. I just say that because Josh Heupel's brought it up this week.
So I think we all know that Tennessee's going to win this game going away. What do you want to see this week? What does for me it's lack of penalties. I mean, Tennessee last week 130 yards. I mean, I'm not saying you can't have a game with 50, 60 yards because you can get a couple of holding penalties and start racking it up a little bit, but 130 yards, that's a lot of football field.
Well, and 13 of them. I mean, you threw there's a lot of flags on the ground, 9 offensively.
They had 135 yards of penalties, excuse me, and 136 yards rushing. That's, you're not going to win many games when you have 1 more yard penalties or 1 more yard rushing than you do penalties.
Rob, for me, I think what you're looking for this week is, in addition to cleaning things up, and obviously they want to clean things up from that standpoint, create a turnover on defense, and then play a lot of people.
Play a lot of people, find some pass rush, which you should be able to do, and I think we're all excited to see Byron Young, see what kind of dimension he brings. And Tennessee had 2 sacks last week, but it was Jeremy Banks, Theo Jackson. They were on blitzes. They didn't get home with anybody in the front 4. Can they do that with Byron Young on the field? You would think so in this game against Tennessee Tech. I'm with you on the turnovers. Tennessee's 5 opponents, they've turned it over five times, haven't created a takeaway yet. And like you say, play a lot of people. See if you can develop some depth on the offensive line. Find a 4th tailback so that if Jalen Wright, a true freshman, doesn't have to play the whole second half like he did last week.
What are your thoughts on changing up the offensive line? I mean, we talked about this on the podcast. Is this one of those situations where you play multiple different kind of lineups, not just like insert on one new guy, but different lineups to see what kind of mojo you can get?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at who I know I've got a lineup to win with in SEC play,
sure,
and I'm protecting those guys. I'm getting them off the field as quick as I can.
So
in this game.
three series, 3 scores, they're out of there?
Look, I'm not saying you don't play, you don't set somebody, just for the sake of setting somebody, but I certainly don't want to lose Jerome Carvin or Cade Mays or somebody to injury this week in a game that you should be able to take care of with some other guys. Kingston Harris, on the other hand, needs as many reps as he can get.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, he needs to play as much as he can possibly play. I think Spraggins needs to play and get going. I don't think he's playing particularly well at this point. And then, is it Jeremiah Crawford at tackle? Where else do you experiment there? For a group that the offensive line coach said he had 9 or 10 ready to go in the preseason, they don't have 9 or 10. Can they get 7 or 8 ready to go?
I was going to say, I don't know if they have 7. And, I mean, this is underrated, but I think you're really seeing the K'Ron Calvert injury hurt Tennessee right now. Because, I mean, he's a guy that had played a lot of SEC football. If he was at right tackle, you can slide Cade inside. I mean, I think that's an injury that it's kind of been forgotten and swept under the rug, but it's a big one.
Defensively, much like the offensive line, secondary is an interesting thing that I'm kind of looking for this week. Like, what does Brandon Turnage look like? What does Kamal Haddon look like? Because we've not seen him the first 2 games.
Let's play him. I mean, are they going to play him? I mean, Willie Martinez said on Tuesday, got to earn your trust and all of that. But, I mean, go earn their trust by putting them on the field this week and seeing what they can do. Let's see some more McDonald. I think Danico Slaughter needs a bunch of run this week and snaps. Let's see what some of those guys look like. Same thing up front on the defensive line. I don't think that some of those young guys can get enough reps right now. And so you better make the most of this week. Because, Rob, when you look at the schedule, not another one coming down the pike where you're going to be able to see what some guys can do.
I mean, your season's pretty much going to be in the books by the time you get another one of these. Once you go through the gauntlet starting in late September, October. And I'm with you on the secondary. The fact that Turnage and Haddon haven't gotten on the field yet is one of the biggest head scratchers because they've tried to play Kenneth George a little bit and it has not gone well. He played 4 snaps last week, gave up a 40-yard completion. He was out, didn't play anymore. And the safeties, they're veteran guys. McCullough and Flowers are playing a lot of football. They're not playing great football right now. And I don't know that there's, is Tamarion McDonald ready to step in? I don't know. Christian Charles probably not. But I would look at some options there.
I would like to see Charles and Rucker both this week.
Agreed.
I mean, I'd like to see, and I'd like to see Muhan at linebacker. I mean, those are guys on special teams that are making plays, that are bought in. Austin, reward those guys. Reward those guys with some early playing time. Don't wait till it's over in the 4th quarter and have them stand out there. Go play. I think some of these young guys need to play this week.
All right, let's take Byron Young off the board because he wasn't eligible to play the last 2 weeks, so everybody's excited to see him. What guy are you most excited to see get some run this weekend?
Well, I mean, he's been getting some run, but I would like to see him get some more run, is Jimmy Callaway. I mean, he's in limited snaps, he's a guy that's making an impact. I don't know if that qualifies as your question, AP, but he's done a lot with a little with the opportunities that he's gotten, and I think he is a guy that deserves to really be moved up a notch or two on like the targeting board.
Well, I mean, for me, again, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Miles Campbell needs to play, okay? Sure. Because I liked what they did with the tight ends, but can you ride with those 2 all season long? You can get another guy. Where's Lenith Whitehead, D. Beckwith? Can they get Javonte Payton going or Jalen Hyatt going? We've talked about those young DBs. I like Christian Charles, and I know he's playing on special teams. You know how sometimes also you cover a guy and you talk to people and you talk to him and you say, that guy's got a lot about him. Christian Charles feels like he's got a lot about him.
Sure.
And so I think he's got a really bright future. I'd like to see that future get accelerated a little bit. I'd like to see what he can do this week.
Fascinating story, too. He is adopted, has never met his parents, and, has just kind of found his way and continues to find his way, especially with that block punt last week. For me, it would be anybody in the secondary. So Charles, Deshaun Rucker, Tamarion McDonald, Haddon, Turnage. I mean, literally, seriously, just give me somebody. I mean,
Austin's dealing.
Anybody in the secondary, just something different. I think they got to be better at safety if they're going to win at Florida or be even in the game at Florida. Tennessee's not been in the game against the Gators since 2017. Butch's last year. They've not had one of those games where they're in it with the Gators. So, just to be in that, I think they've got to have better safety play. So, I think they just need more depth there for my liking.
And here's the other thing as we wrap it up. Is this team mentally strong enough to be ready to play in a game that they're favored by 4 touchdowns or 5 or whatever the number is going to end up being? You heard the coaching staff. You heard Josh Heupel talk about how they didn't really prepare the way he liked the last 48 hours or so leading up to kickoff last week. Is there enough leadership? Is there enough strength on this team to make sure this team is ready to go in a game where everybody's thinking the same thing we're thinking up here? Should be a laydown for Tennessee. Are they ready to go right out of the gates, or is this one of those slow rolling starts that midway through the 2nd quarter they get going? Are they going to come out hair on fire ready to go?
Well, they better come out hair on fire, because otherwise the 43,204 that'll be in attendance will not be none too pleased. So he is Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs. I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable.